Did you see that?
What is her problem?
She thinks she's so cool.
When Amara, the only black transfer student at Lincoln High, arrives with quiet strength, she is targeted by a group of privileged bullies who mock her, plot against her, and ultimately trap her inside a locker for 12 agonizing hours, yet their cruelty only exposes her resilience. The silence of teachers and classmates reveals systemic complicity, but Amara's calm defiance and mastery of karate shattered the narrative of weakness they tried to impose. As her suffering comes to light through discovery, confrontation, and exposure on video, the school community is forced to reckon with its indifference. Consequences follow: suspensions, firings, and shattered reputations, while Amara transforms into a symbol of resistance through humiliation, survival, and truth. The story builds toward poetic justice, where the oppressors find themselves chained by their own actions, and Amara emerges unbroken, her silence more powerful than their hate, her presence a mirror they cannot escape. The first bell of the morning rang through Lincoln High like the crack of a whip. Students rushed through wide, polished hallways, lockers clanging open and shut. Among the blur of familiar faces, one unfamiliar figure stood out: a girl with long braids tied back neatly, her eyes sharp yet wary, her steps measured like someone trained not to stumble, even when the ground was hostile. Amara Daniels, 16, carried her transfer papers in one hand and a battered backpack in the other. She paused at the main office door. Behind the counter, a secretary glanced at her, then quickly at the clock. "You must be the transfer," the woman said flatly, sliding a schedule across the counter. "Lockers in the east wing, homerooms to be." Amara gave a small nod. "Thank you." The woman didn't return the courtesy. Walking into homeroom, Amara felt the air shift. Heads turned, whispers stirred. A boy near the back muttered, not softly enough, "Didn't know we had imports this year." Laughter rippled. The teacher cleared his throat. "Class, this is Amara. Make her feel welcome." He turned back to the chalkboard without waiting to see if anyone would. Amara sat near the window. The desk was sticky with dried gum. The girl beside her leaned over. "Where you from?" "Chicago," Amara answered. The girl wrinkled her nose. "Figures, you talk funny." At lunch, the stares grew heavier. She carried her tray, searching for an empty table. Before she could sit, 3 girls blocked her path. Blonde ponytails, perfect eyeliner, identical smirks, cute hair. One of them sneered, tugging at a braid. "How long does that take?" "Like, all day." The second chimed in. "Bet she sleeps standing up so it doesn't mess up." They burst into laughter, high-pitched and deliberate. Amara's jaw clenched. She stared at them silently. The silence unsettled them more than words would have, but still, they lingered. "Don't get so serious," the first girl said, voice dripping with mock sweetness. "It's just a joke." Amara brushed past them, placing her tray down at an empty corner table. She ate slowly, each bite heavy with the weight of every eye still on her. The narration intruded like a cold lens. In spaces like these, silence often counts as consent. The laughter of the cruel grows louder when the decent choose to be quiet, and in schools like Lincoln High, silence was the loudest sound of all. When the final bell rang, Amara stopped by her locker. Her fingers brushed the inside wall where someone had scratched a crude word already half covered in marker. She shut the door gently, her face unreadable. As she walked toward the exit, she heard her father's voice, in memory low steady, like the rhythm of a drum. "People will try to put you in cages, Amara, but cages are only strong if you forget you can break them." Her hand tightened on the strap of her backpack. The hostile world outside those doors waited, but so did her own discipline, buried deep, patient as a coiled spring. And so the day ended, not with defeat, but with a silent promise she would not bend. The morning sun slanted through the tall windows of Lincoln High, but light didn't chase away what Amara saw when she reached her locker. Across the metal door, jagged letters sprawled in thick black marker, "Go back." Beneath it, a crude drawing. Laughter echoed faintly from the end of the hall. 3 students, pretending not to watch her reaction. Amara's hand hovered over the vandalized surface. Her pulse quickened, but her face stayed calm. She opened the locker, tucked her books inside, and closed it without a word. "Hey, Daniels," one of the boys called out. "Guess they saved your locker just for you." The group snickered. Amara ignored them and walked to class. In history, the teacher droned about the Civil War. Amara's eyes stayed fixed on her notes, but the girl in the desk behind her leaned forward, whispering, "You see your locker yet?" Yes, the janitor didn't clean it fast enough. Amara didn't turn around. The teacher glanced back once, caught the whisper, and looked away. His chalk scraped harder against the board. Injustice rarely starts with violence. It begins with permission, granted in silence, signed with indifference. By Jim. The tension had thickened. Students changed into uniforms, chatter bouncing off the tiled walls. Amara laced her sneakers quietly. Across the locker room, the trio of girls who mocked her at lunch were whispering again. "Watch this," one muttered. On the basketball court, teams were picked. Amara ended up on the same side as her. During play, one girl deliberately shoved past her, knocking her shoulder. "Oops," she smirked. Another pass came. The ball hurtled toward Amara. She caught it cleanly, pivoted, dribbled toward the hoop. A sudden foot hooked around her ankle. She stumbled, falling hard. Her lips split against the floor. Blood filled her mouth. The girls laughed. "She can't even run straight." The coach blew his whistle lazily. "Play on, play on." Amara pushed herself up. She wiped the blood with the back of her hand, eyes narrowing, chest steadying. "You think this is funny," she said low, her voice edged with iron. One girl tilted her head mockingly. "What are you gonna do about it?" The game ended. Amara sat on the bench, still tasting copper. Students passed by, staring but saying nothing. In the hallway afterward, a boy muttered as she passed, "Better watch yourself, Chicago." Amara's silence again was a weapon. She didn't flinch, didn't break stride, but inside, her father's words beat steady against her skull like a mantra. Discipline isn't weakness. Endure until the right moment. Strike only when it matters. She reached her locker again after class. The slur was still there. A teacher walked past, paused, frowned. "Kids," he muttered, shaking his head, "don't let it get to you." He kept walking. Amara stared at his retreating back, her hands clenched into fists. Bruises fade, words stain. Silence builds the walls higher. She opened the locker, placed her books carefully, and closed it. For the second time that day, she made the same choice. Endure. But endurance was not surrender. The day ended with bruises on her body, red cracks on her lip, and a fire banked low in her chest. She walked home through the cooling air, the streets lined with indifferent houses. Her reflection in a shop window caught her eye. Blood still marked her mouth. She looked at herself and whispered, almost soundless, "Not broken." And the promise she carried grew sharper. The last bell echoed through the corridors of Lincoln High. Backpacks slammed shut. Sneakers pounded against linoleum. Laughter spilled out of every hallway. The school emptied in waves first, the noisy, careless ones, then the lingerers. By late afternoon, the corridors were nearly hollow. Amara walked alone, her books pressed tight against her chest. The slur was still etched across her locker, though she had grown used to walking past it. Today, the hallway felt quieter than usual. From the shadows, near the gym doors, voices rose. "There she is." The trio of girls stepped forward, flanked by two boys. Their smirks had sharpened into something darker. "Going home already?" One girl drawled. "Thought you'd like a little school spirit." Amara kept walking. "Move." The tallest boy blocked her path. "What's the rush? We just want to hang out." Laughter echoed off the empty lockers. They circled her slowly. "A predator's ring. You think you're better than us, walking around all quiet, all tough. Not talking doesn't make you strong." Another girl hissed, "It makes you pathetic." Amara's fists tightened around her books. Her eyes scanned for a gap. None. The boy nearest to her leaned in. "Bet you don't even scream." He shoved the books from her arms. They scattered across the floor, sliding against lockers. Amara's jaw clenched. "Pick them up," she said. "Or what?" His grin widened. In one motion, they shoved her backward. Her spine hit cold metal. Before she could turn, a hand yanked open the locker door beside her. "Let's see how you like it in there." Hands pressed against her shoulders, shoving hard. She resisted, her muscles coiled tight. But 5 against 1 was a storm she couldn't fight here, not yet. Her body folded into the narrow space, the metal biting into her arms. A foot slammed the door shut. The lock clicked. Darkness swallowed her. Her fists pounded against the metal. "Open it." Laughter erupted outside. "Guess we'll check on you later, Chicago. Don't suffocate." "Okay." Their footsteps receded, each one mocking, each one deliberate. Amara pressed her forehead to the door. The air inside was already hot, sharp with rust and paint. Her breath came fast, shallow. She shouted once, twice. The sound bounced back at her, muffled by steel. Silence followed. The hallways outside dimmed as the sun set. The clatter of lockers closing, the shuffle of teachers leaving, the squeak of shoes. Each sound grew distant. Soon, there was nothing but the hum of the building itself. "This is your cage," the narration whispered coldly, "and no one is coming." Her pulse hammered. Sweat slicked her palms. She tried to shift her weight, but the narrow walls pinned her tight. Her shoulder ached from the pressure. She closed her eyes. Her father's voice came deep and measured. "When you are trapped, Amara, your enemy isn't the cage. It's the panic. Breathe slower than your fear. Make the walls your lesson." She inhaled, exhaled. The air felt thin, but rhythm gave her strength. Hours began to stretch. The laughter of the bullies faded into memory. The building's silence deepened. Occasionally, a door slammed in the distance, then nothing. Her throat burned with thirst. Her muscles cramped. She pressed her palm flat against the locker's interior, as though pushing against the world itself. The narration cut sharp. "This is not a prank. This is cruelty dressed in laughter, sharpened by silence. This is how systems break children, by locking them away and calling it discipline. Or worse, calling it nothing at all." Amara's eyes closed. She whispered into the dark, voice raw, "You'll regret this." Her body trembled, but her voice carried steel. "You don't know me." Time crawled. The hallway lights flickered off one by one. The trap was set. The night had only begun. The first hour was noise. Amara's fists thundered against the locker walls, each strike echoing like a drum swallowed by steel. Her throat burned from shouting. Her palms stung from pounding. Every few minutes, she paused to listen for footsteps. None came. By the second hour, silence thickened. The halls outside had emptied. The distant hum of the building's vents was her only companion. Sweat slid down her spine. Her breathing grew shallow. She tried again, kicking, screaming, but the sound barely escaped the narrow slit of the locker. "Help!" Her voice cracked. Nothing answered. "The cruelty of cages isn't their bars. It's the way they make the world forget you exist." The third hour brought stillness. Her muscles cramped from the forced crouch. Her knees ached. She leaned her head against the cold metal, forcing herself to breathe slowly, evenly. Her father's words threaded through memory like a rope. "A fighter's first weapon is discipline. When the air feels too thin, cut it into pieces. Breathe one piece at a time." She inhaled through her nose, counted, exhaled, counted again. Panic clawed at her chest, but the rhythm dulled its teeth. By the fifth hour, the dark pressed in heavier. Hunger churned faintly, but thirst hit harder. Her tongue felt swollen. She thought of water fountains, of cold streams from childhood trips. She bit the inside of her cheek until the taste of blood spread metallic. Sharp. Her voice rasped. 12 hours. Can't break me." The words were for herself. In the void, words became lifelines. At the seventh hour, her mind began to wander. She saw her father again, his dojo back in Chicago, mats rolled out, sunlight on polished wood. His stance mirrored hers as a child, her fists clumsy, his movements fluid. "Balance," he'd said, adjusting her shoulders. "Balance keeps you standing when the world wants you on the ground." She shifted her weight inside the locker, trying to ease the cramp in her calves. Even here, balance. The ninth hour scraped raw. Sleep clawed at her eyes, but the space was too tight. Every muscle screamed. She whispered names of katas under her breath like prayers. Heian Shoden, Hawa Nidan, Teiki. Each name a reminder of control, of rhythm, of power. Her breath slowed. Her panic dulled into something harder. Resolved. By the 10th hour, anger sharpened. The laughter of the bullies replayed in her head. Their voices taunted her in loops. She clenched her fists until her nails bit her palms. "You think you caged me," she murmured, "but you just sharpened me." Her whisper was steady now, no longer broken. The 12th hour came with dawn. A faint glow seeped through the vents above the lockers as the sun rose outside. The building hummed awake again, pipes groaning, distant doors creaking. Her body was weak, but her will had hardened into steel. She pressed her forehead against the door, eyes closed, and breathed. The narration cut sharp, documentary-like. They left her 12 hours in silence, 12 hours in darkness, 12 hours as proof that cruelty thrives when no one is watching. But 12 hours did not break her. They only carved the shape of her defiance. When the lock finally rattled from the outside, Amara did not flinch. She was ready. The lock clattered. A key scraped, metal against metal. Then a groan of hinges. Light split the darkness. Amara tumbled forward, collapsing onto the linoleum. Her arms shook as they tried to catch her weight. Her lips were dry, cracked, her body trembling. She sucked in air like a drowning swimmer breaching the surface. A man's startled voice rang out. What the... It was Mr. Harris, the janitor. His mop clattered against the wall. He crouched beside her. Kid, what the hell? How long you been in there? Amara's mouth opened, but only a rasp came out. All night. His face tightened. He glanced down the hall, then back at her. Jesus Christ. Within minutes, the hallway swarmed. Teachers rushed in, their voices a mix of alarm and calculation. Is she all right? Get her some water quickly. Don't just stand there. Call the nurse. A plastic bottle was pressed into Amara's hands. She drank in shaky gulps, the liquid stinging her throat. Who found her? A teacher asked. Harris, another answered. The principal arrived, face pale but voice firm. All right, everyone calm down. We need to handle this responsibly. Responsibly. The word rang hollow. Students began to arrive, streaming past in shocked cloisters. Whispers hissed through the crowd. Is that the new girl? Did she just come out of a locker? No way. Phones lifted discreetly, screens glowing. The bullies appeared, their faces painted with false concern. Oh my God, one of the girls gasped theatrically. What happened? Another chimed in. Did she do that to herself? Teachers glanced between them and Amara. Doubt flickered in some eyes. The narration cut in. Cold cruelty wears masks. Sometimes the mask is laughter. Sometimes it's innocence feigned so well that adults nod along. And institutions, hungry for reputation, often choose the mask over the truth. Amara sat on the bench outside the nurse's office. Her body sagged with exhaustion, but her eyes burned sharp. The principal leaned down. Amara, if something happened, you need to tell us. Did anyone put you in there? Her gaze lifted slowly to his. Her voice was raw, but steady. You already know. His mouth opened, then closed. His glance darted toward the crowd. We can't make assumptions without proof. Proof. In a hallway full of whispers. In a school painted with silence. Proof was the currency of the powerful. Amara leaned back against the wall, silent. The weight of her stare alone made the bullies shift uncomfortably, their laughter gone. The nurse fussed, handing Amara a blanket, pressing her to rest. But rest wasn't what settled over her. Something colder, sharper did. The narration followed like a knife's edge. They thought they had broken her. What they didn't understand was that survival is louder than screams. Even silence can be a weapon when held by the right hands. That morning, the story spread through every hallway, every phone screen. Some students whispered it like gossip. Others carried it like shame. And the bullies, once smug, now found themselves under stares, not of admiration, but suspicion. Their laughter no longer echoed. It faltered. For the first time, they felt the edges of fear. Monday morning, the halls of Lincoln High pulsed with unease. News of the locker incident had spread like wildfire. Some students spoke in hushed voices, others in mocking tones. The bullies laughed too loudly, their voices brittle. Teachers walked past Amara with stiff smiles, their eyes flicking away quickly. Amara entered homeroom. Every head turned. She set her books down with deliberate calm. Her split lip had healed into a faint scar. Her silence carried weight heavier than words. The girl beside her, one of the trios. Sleep well this weekend. Bet you're not too comfy in small spaces anymore. The class chuckled. Amara turned her head slowly. Her voice was low but cut clean. Your laugh sounds different when people are watching. The room froze. The girl's face flushed, her smirk faltering. By lunch, the bullies cornered her again, this time in the main hallway. Students gathered instinctively, sensing spectacle. You think you're tough now? The tallest boy sneered. Think you scared us? Newsflash, another girl spat. Nobody cares. You're just the weird transfer who can't take a joke. Amara set her tray down on the floor carefully. She straightened her back. You don't know me, she said. Her voice was calm, but the crowd leaned in, as if it carried thunder. The boy shoved her shoulder. Then, show us. The shove was the spark. Amara moved, not wild, not reckless, a precise sidestep. His momentum carried forward, and she redirected it with a sharp pivot. He stumbled into the lockers. Gasps erupted from the crowd. One of the girls lunged. Amara's hand snapped up, deflecting the swing. Her palm pressed against the girl's wrist, guiding it harmlessly past her face. Another tried to push from behind. Amara shifted her stance, grounded, and the shove met a wall of balance. She turned, her elbow angled, not striking, but stopping just short of impact. The girl recoiled as if burned. Voices shouted from the crowd. Holy, did you see that? She didn't even hit them. Bro, she's like drained or something. Amara's breath was steady, her eyes unwavering. She hadn't thrown a single punch, but the bullies were rattled, faces red, bravado cracked. Stay down, she said, quiet but absolute. The boy's mouth opened, but no words came. The hallway held its breath. Teachers finally stormed in, shoving through the students. Break it up right now. Amara stepped back, hands lowered. She didn't resist. The bullies sputtered. She attacked us. Murmurs rippled from the crowd. No, they pushed her first. She didn't even swing. I recorded the whole thing. Phones glowed in raised hands. Screens pointed toward the teachers, toward the truth. The principal appeared, eyes blazing. My office. Now. Amara walked forward calmly, the bullies trailing behind. The crowd parted, whispering like witnesses to a storm. Silence had been her weapon. Now, precision became her language, and in a single hallway, the balance shifted. The girl they tried to break had revealed the steel beneath. Inside the office, accusations flew. She shoved him into the lockers. She grabbed me. She's violent, dangerous. Amara stood still. I defended myself. You know it. The principal's jaw clenched. We'll review what happened. Until then, a knock interrupted. A student slipped in, phone raised. Sir, you might want to see this. The video played. The truth unfolded. Amara standing steady, the bullies lunging, her movements sharp but restrained. Silence filled the room, heavier than judgment. The narration cut in, precise as a verdict. For weeks, silence had protected the abusers, but silence breaks when truth finds witnesses, and once silence breaks, it cannot be repaired. The bully's eyes darted, panic surfacing for the first time. Amara remained still, her gaze unyielding. The balance of power had shifted, and this time, she wasn't alone. By the next morning, the video had spread far beyond Lincoln High. Phones buzzed nonstop, clips circulated in group chats, on social media feeds, even whispered about by parents in grocery store lines. Amara's calm precision in the hallway, the sidestep, the redirection, the restraint was replayed again and again. She didn't even hit them. She was defending herself. Those kids set her up. The bullies' smirks had vanished in the cafeteria. Students no longer looked at Amara with mockery. Their stares now carried something else. Respect, curiosity, uneased at a nearby table. One boy muttered, "Can't believe they shoved her like that," and still called her violent. Another replied, "That's what they always do." Flip the story. Whispers spread like fire. The laughter that once carried the bullies had turned brittle, collapsing under the weight of the truth replayed on every screen. The principal held an emergency staff meeting. His voice shook under the pressure of scrutiny. "This is unacceptable. We are conducting a full investigation." Teachers shifted uneasily. Some glanced at the video playing silently on the screen. Mara steady, the bullies lunging. Their silence weighed heavy, their earlier indifference now exposed. One teacher finally spoke. "We knew something was happening. We just didn't act." The room stilled. Guilt bled into the silence. At home, Amara sat quietly at the kitchen table. Her mother's phone vibrated nonstop with messages. "Amara," her mother said softly, "do you understand what you've done? People are watching. The truth is out." Amara nodded slowly. "They wanted me invisible. Now they can't look away." The next day, reporters appeared outside the school gates, microphones shoved forward, cameras flashing. "Were you really locked in a locker for 12 hours? Do you think the school tried to cover it up?" Amara didn't answer. Her silence remained her shield. Her gaze, steady, became her answer. The narration cut in, sharp. Exposure does not erase cruelty. It reveals it. Like rot beneath polished wood, truth spreads when the light finally cuts through, and once it spreads, it cannot be hidden again. The bullies now walked the halls under a different gaze. Their whispers had no audience. Their confidence cracked. Even their friends edged away. One of the girls hissed at Amara as she passed. "You think this makes you some kind of hero?" Amara didn't stop walking. Her voice floated back, calm and cutting. "No, it just makes you visible." The girl flinched as students around them heard. The sting wasn't physical, it was exposure. The mirror held up for all to see. At the week's end, the principal announced suspensions. The bullies shouted protests, tears streaking some faces, but the murmurs of the crowd drowned them out. They deserve it. Finally, about time. The decision wasn't justice, not fully, but it was consequence, and consequence was a beginning. That night, The video played on a local news segment. The anchor's voice was steady. A new student at Lincoln High endured racial harassment and an alleged 12-hour confinement in a school locker. When confronted again, she defended herself with remarkable restraint. Parents are demanding accountability. Amara sat on the couch, the screen's glow flickering against her face. She whispered only one word, good. The storm finally broke by Monday. Lincoln High was no longer the same school Amara had walked in 2 weeks before. The video had become evidence, not rumor. The whispers had become testimony. The silence of teachers had become a charge against them. The narration cut in like a scalpel. When truth is buried, it festers. But when it surfaces, it does not ask permission. It demands reckoning. In the auditorium, the superintendent stood on stage before the entire student body. Rows of eyes locked forward. Reporters clustered in the back. The air was thick, expectant. The superintendent's voice carried through the room. Lincoln High has failed. We failed to protect a student. We failed to act when others cried out. Today, we acknowledge this failure. Gasps, murmurs, silence. On stage, the bullies sat stiff in folding chairs. Their parents hovered behind them, faces flushed with shame and denial. The once smug ringleader bit her lip until it bled. The superintendent continued, "These students will face disciplinary measures, including expulsion. Staff who ignored warnings will also be investigated. No student should suffer what Amara endured." The name rang across the auditorium like a bell dot at the center of the third row. Amara sat still, her mother's hand resting lightly on her shoulder. Dozens of eyes turned toward her. But this time, the weight of their stares was different. Not mockery, not suspicion, recognition. After the meeting, a flood of reporters swarmed outside, microphones pushed forward. "Amara, do you forgive them?" She paused. The bullies lingered behind her, faces pale under the press lights. Amara's voice was steady, razor sharp. "Forgiveness is not owed, accountability is." The words sliced clean through the chaos. The reporters' pens scratched faster. The cameras zoomed closer. The bullies shrank further in the hallways. Poetic justice unfolded piece by piece. The teachers who had looked away now walked with heads bowed, whispers trailing after them. They knew they didn't help. The ringleader of the bullies, once flanked by her friends, now sat alone in the cafeteria. Students walked past her table without glancing. The silence she once weaponized was now her prison. A boy muttered as he passed, 12 hours in a locker. She thought that was funny. Another answered, now 12 years from now, it'll still follow her name. The words hit harder than fists. Reputation had become its own sentence. One evening, Amara and her mother stood outside on their porch, watching the sunset burn the horizon red gold. For the first time in weeks, the air felt lighter. Her mother spoke quietly. "You know this isn't the end. They'll talk, they'll twist, but you showed them something they couldn't bury." Amara looked straight ahead, her jaw steady. "They wanted me broken. Instead, they exposed themselves." The narration carved itself into the moment. Poetic justice is not vengeance. It is reflection. It is the cruelty of the oppressor turned back upon them, magnified by the truth they tried to erase. The final blow came not from fists, not from shouts, but from silence. The school board announced the firing of 2 staff members. The principal, under investigation, resigned for personal reasons. The bullies' parents scrambled with lawyers, but the stain could not be scrubbed from the record. Screens replayed the moment of Amara's defense again and again. Each replay deepened the divide between truth and the lies once told about her. Weeks later, during gym class, one of the quieter students approached Amara. His voice trembled. They locked me in the bathroom once. I never said anything. I wish I did." Amara looked at him, her eyes steady. "Now you know silence doesn't protect anyone. Speak next time." The boy nodded, shame in his face, but hope. By spring, Amara had claimed a place no one could deny. Not the school, not the teachers, not the students who once laughed. She trained in the gym after hours, her strikes sharp, her breath steady, her presence unshaken. The locker that once held her stood empty. Rust flecked its edges. Students avoided it, whispering stories about the girl who endured 12 hours inside and walked out stronger. That locker had become a monument not of cruelty, but of resistance. The narration closed with finality. Justice is not always loud. Sometimes it is a silence that exposes, a silence that lingers. The bullies wanted Amara erased. Instead, they erased themselves. She did not break, she became the mirror they could not escape. Amara tied her hair back, her stance steady. The world had seen her locked away. Now, the world could only watch as she stepped forward, unbroken. The semester wound toward its end, but Lincoln High carried the scars of what had unfolded. No announcement, no expulsion, no resignation could erase the weight of what had been done to Amara. The halls felt different now. Laughter no longer carried with the same cruelty. The whispers had shifted, sharpened into conscience. Yet under the surface, fear lingered, because if it could happen once, it could happen again. The narration cut in, grave and unflinching. Chains do not vanish in a single strike. They rattle, they cling, they wait for silence to return. The question is not if they exist, but if we dare to break them fully. On the last week of classes, Amara was called to the auditorium once again. Students filled the rows. This time, she stood on the stage. Her voice, though quiet, carried across the space. You all saw what happened. You all know the truth now. But truth without change is just another story. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Eyes locked on her. Some with shame, some with pride, some with fear. She continued. They locked me away for 12 hours, thinking no one would care, thinking no one would believe me. They were wrong. But I'm not the only one who's been silenced in these halls. You've all seen it, felt it, maybe even done it yourselves. The silence that followed was louder than applause. After the assembly, a girl from Amara's math class walked up to her. She clutched her backpack tightly. I used to laugh with them when they mocked you. I didn't stop them. I just didn't want them to turn on me too. Amara's gaze was steady, not cruel, but unyielding. You were afraid, but fear doesn't excuse silence. Next time, speak, or you're part of it. The girl's lips trembled, but she nodded. Tears blurred her eyes. In the following weeks, the bullies' lives unraveled piece by piece. Social invitations vanished. College recommendations slipped away. Parents whispered about the video when their names came up. What they had done could not be hidden. Not in an age where everything lived forever online. One afternoon, the ringleader crossed paths with Amara in the empty hallway. For the first time, her voice wasn't sharp, it was broken. Do you hate me? Amara didn't answer immediately. Her silence pressed down heavier than words. Finally, she spoke. I don't need to hate you. You built your own chains. The ringleader blinked, tears gathering. She turned away, unable to face the reflection Amara forced her to see. At home, Amara sat at her desk, writing in a worn notebook. Her pen cut lines into the page. They wanted me small. They wanted me silent. But silence is their weapon, not mine. My voice is my own. My body is my own. They cannot take that from me again. Her mother passed the doorway, pausing to glance inside. Her voice was warm, but edged with pride. You're stronger than I ever knew. Amara answered without looking up. I was always strong. They just thought the chains would hide it. Graduation day came with sunlight breaking through heavy clouds. Students in gowns filed across the stage. Families clapped. Cameras flashed. Futures stretched wide. When Amara's name was called, the applause was louder than she expected. Not everyone clapped, but enough to make the sound rise. She walked across the stage, head high, diploma in hand. The narration rose. Chains are not always iron. They are silence, complicity, fear. But once broken, once they can never hold the same weight again. After the ceremony, Amara stood at the edge of the football field, looking out at the horizon. A breeze tugged at her gown. Students laughed and cried in clusters around her. Her mother came up beside her. You ready to leave this behind? Amara shook her head slightly. Not leave it. Carry it, because if I forget, they win. And if I speak, someone else might not have to go through it. Her mother's hand squeezed hers, firm and proud. As the sun dipped lower, the field slowly emptied. Amara stayed behind, standing tall under the wide sky. The final narration cut through with clarity. The question was never whether the chains existed. The question was whether they could be broken. And in Amara's silence, her strength, her unyielding refusal to vanish, the answer had already been written. She exhaled slowly, eyes fixed on the horizon. The chains had been broken, but the fight for herself, for others, was only beginning.